Millionaire CEO heard the cleaning lady speak 9 languages and transformed the entire office. The camera opens on a towering skyscraper, piercing the morning fog of a gray, sleepless city. The name of the corporation glints in cold steel at the top, Cronex Global Industries. Inside, everything is pristine, metallic, sterile, like success itself has been vacuum sealed. Glass walls, hushed footsteps, the low hum of artificial intelligence assistants. A place where every mistake is a death sentence for your career, and every breath is timed like an Olympic sprint. The morning tension crackles through the open-plan office. Screens flicker with graphs and international reports. A young intern spills coffee on the corner of a glass table and is instantly swallowed by stares of death from the nearest team. No one offers a napkin. There's no time for kindness here. At the far end of the 47th floor, a meeting room encased in soundproof glass looms like an aquarium of sharks in suits. Inside it, a man with slicked back hair and a jaw chiseled by power sits at the head of the table. He doesn't blink. He doesn't move unnecessarily. He radiates control. His watch costs more than most people's annual salary. His name isn't spoken out loud. It's executed. He's referred to only as Mr. K by the employees, like a ghost you fear summoning. That Japanese merger should have been closed 2 days ago, he says without raising his voice. But somehow, the calmness is more terrifying than any shout. And yet, here we are, behind. A senior executive swallows hard. We had translation issues with their legal department. Then perhaps we should start hiring people who can read. A silence falls over the room, so sharp it could slice a diamond. Meanwhile, on the other side of the floor, invisible to everyone, a figure moves swiftly through the maze of glass walls and synthetic carpets. A woman in a gray janitor's uniform, with her hair tightly pulled back, pushing a cart of cleaning supplies. She doesn't make eye contact, doesn't speak. She's a ghost in their world, a moving blur meant to be ignored. She pauses beside one of the meeting rooms, her back turned to the powerful voices echoing behind the glass. She's not cleaning. She's listening. From inside the conference room, frustration erupts. They don't want to sign unless we bring someone who can speak directly with their regional managers, says the legal director. We tried apps, even AI translations. Nothing lands. Mr. K stares at him as if he were a cracked window in a luxury penthouse. And then, a voice breaks the silence. Not from inside, but outside the room. Calm, confident, precise. In perfect Japanese, the woman in the gray uniform responds through the glass. Their concern lies in the ambiguity of the contract. If you clarify that section, they'll sign by tomorrow. The room freezes. Everyone turns, startled. Mr. K slowly swivels in his chair, eyes narrowing. Through the glass, they see her, the janitor, still holding a mop. No one breathes. She realizes she's been heard. Her eyes widen, just a fraction. Then she lowers her head and continues walking, as if nothing happened. Inside the meeting room, Mr. K stands up for the first time. Who the hell is that? No one answers. No one knows. But she knew Japanese, fluently, and she wasn't supposed to even exist. The elevator doors shut with a soft click, sealing her in a moving steel box. The faint buzz of the fluorescent light above her hums like a warning. She stands in silence, expression unreadable, her gloved fingers wrapped tightly around the metal handle of her cleaning cart. The numbers blink downward, 47, 46, 45. Below, in the executive floor, chaos is stirring like a shaken wasp nest. Mr. K storms out of the meeting room, his polished shoes slicing through the silence like razors. Find out who she is, he growls to his assistant, a nervous young man who scrambles to catch up, tablet in hand. Name, schedule, background check, everything. She's probably a contractor, the assistant mutters. They outsource janitorial services. I'll contact facilities. No, I don't want speculation. I want facts. Mr. K's voice is quiet again, which makes it more terrifying. Someone in this building speaks fluent Japanese, understands corporate negotiation, and isn't sitting in this room. That is unacceptable. The rest of the board stares in stunned silence, still shaken. No one mentions the janitor again, but no one forgets either. Meanwhile, deep in the lower levels of the building, far from the polished surfaces and prestige. The woman returns her cart to the supply room. It's a cramped space, surrounded by brooms, metal shelves, and the heavy scent of disinfectant. Her shoulders sag as she exhales slowly, as if shedding a weight too heavy to carry in public. Another janitor, older, with a kind face and paint-stained boots, peers in. "You okay?" he asks. "Heard something went down upstairs." She doesn't look up. "I made a mistake." "Did they catch you?" She finally lifts her gaze. There's pain in her eyes. But more than that, something razor-sharp, focused, dangerous. "They noticed," she says. "It was bound to happen eventually." The man frowns. "You said you wanted to keep your head down. Lay low. What changed?" "I couldn't help it," she murmurs. "They were about to ruin a deal with a Japanese firm. It was painful to watch. I spoke before I thought." A long pause. Then the man says quietly, "You've been hiding in plain sight for almost a year. If they start digging—" "I know." She takes off her gloves slowly, one finger at a time, revealing a scar on her wrist. Old, faint, but precise. Like something medical. Or maybe military. She stares at the wall, as if seeing through it. "Everything I ran from," she whispers, "might find me now." Back upstairs, Mr. K is pacing. No one has a record of her. He snaps. His assistant shakes his head. There's no name matching her face in the janitorial staff files. I had security run facial recognition. Nothing. No social media. No driver's license. She doesn't exist in the system. Mr. K pauses, then smiles, but it's not the kind of smile that brings comfort. It's surgical, calculating. "Well," he says, "let's change that." He turns to his head of security. "Pull every security camera from the last 6 months. I want to know when she started, who let her in, who she speaks to, what route she takes, what floor she disappears to, and what name is on her badge. If she's in my building," he narrows his eyes, "she's mine now." It's after midnight when the first real trace appears. Inside the security surveillance room, rows of monitors cast a pale blue light over tired eyes and jittering fingers. The head of internal security, a man named Dalton with a history in private intelligence, sits alone, sifting through days of footage. Fast forward. Pause. Rewind. Zoom. Repeat. The mysterious janitor appears at 5:04 a.m. one morning, entering through a service door at the back of the building. No camera catches her arriving from outside. No one signs her in. She simply materializes, always before the building comes alive. Dalton watches her in every clip. Her posture never changes. Her routine never slips. Always efficient, always silent, always avoiding eye contact. But then, something catches his attention. In one video, from 3 weeks ago, she lingers near the executive elevators. She's not cleaning. She's listening, again. 2 board members are having a private conversation, just out of frame. Her head is tilted slightly, one hand resting casually on her cart handle. Dalton leans in closer. She nods once, then walks away before anyone notices. That's not the behavior of a janitor. That's the behavior of someone trained to observe. Dalton reaches for the phone and dials a secure line. She's not who she says she is, he mutters. If she even said who she is. On the upper floors, Mr. K sits alone in his glass office, staring out at the glittering city skyline. A tumbler of untouched scotch rests by his side. The silence is broken only by the faint hum of the air conditioning. The earlier moment replays in his mind. Her voice, steady and precise, cutting through the chaos in fluent Japanese. It haunts him, not just because of the surprise, but because of something deeper. It reminded him of someone. He taps his fingers rhythmically on the glass desk, then suddenly pulls open a drawer. From within, he retrieves a small black folder marked confidential. Inside, a single photo, blurred, scanned from an old database, of a woman in military attire, surrounded by other elite operatives in some war-torn foreign land. The photo is dated 11 years ago. He stares at the woman's face. It's hard to say for sure, but there's something about the eyes, the intensity, the control. He makes a note on a yellow post-it. Verify with Interpol. Meanwhile, far below, in a hidden corner of the parking garage, the woman steps out of her uniform. Underneath the gray overalls, she wears a sleek, black blouse, simple, elegant, but high-end. She brushes her hair free from the tight bun and applies a bit of lipstick from a compact mirror tucked inside the janitor's cart. Then she slips out of the building unnoticed, vanishing into the city streets like vapor in the night. What no one knows is that the ID badge she wears isn't hers. It was printed by hand. And every morning, she enters through a service tunnel with no security camera, one she discovered 8 months ago when she first infiltrated the building. As she disappears into the subway crowd, her phone vibrates in her coat pocket. A message. No sender ID. They're onto you. Adjust protocol. She deletes the message instantly, then boards a train headed in the opposite direction of where she lives. She had always known this day would come, but she didn't expect him to be the one to recognize her. Not after what happened in Berlin, not after what she buried, and certainly not after what he did. The next morning, Kronex Global awakens in its usual rhythm, robotic, relentless. But under the surface, something has shifted. The staff feel it, though they can't name it. A tension in the air, a subtle disturbance, as if someone had rearranged the furniture of their reality without asking. Mr. K arrives 2 hours earlier than usual. His schedule has been cleared for the day, his phone placed on Do Not Disturb. He doesn't speak to anyone, not even his assistant. Instead, he walks directly to the security floor, where Dalton is already waiting, arms crossed, face grave. She doesn't show up on any official employee roster. Dalton begins. No tax records, no contracts, not even an onboarding form. Whoever she is, she's a ghost. Mr. K remains silent, then places the blurry photo on the desk between them. Dalton leans in, eyebrows raised. You think it's her? Not sure yet, but I want a deep dig. Black Ops records. Ex-military. Anything related to international intelligence. Start with Berlin, 11 years ago. Cross-reference every woman with tactical training and language specialization. Dalton hesitates. Berlin. That operation was scrubbed. There's barely any record left. Then find what's left. Mr. K snaps. Dalton exhales, then nods. All right, but if she's who you think she is, we might be in trouble. Mr. K doesn't flinch. We already are. Across town, in a small studio apartment tucked between a laundromat and a shuttered bookstore, the woman stands barefoot in her kitchen, pouring boiling water over a single tea bag. The room is minimalist, almost too clean, like she's ready to disappear at a moment's notice. No photos, no decorations, no clutter. She opens a drawer filled with dozens of cell phones, each labeled with a thin strip of tape. Paris, Istanbul, Moscow, Lima. She picks up one marked Berlin, hesitates, then puts it back. A notification lights up on her current device. One word, surveillance confirmed. She expected that. She places the phone on the counter, presses a button on its side, and the screen goes black, permanently. The device has erased itself. She sits down at the table and closes her eyes. And in the silence, the memories return, uninvited, violent. Berlin. Snow falling over an empty bridge. Gunfire echoing through a crumbling factory. The smell of gasoline and blood. And a man, eyes sharp, voice cold, walking away from her while she screamed his name. She had loved him, trusted him, and he betrayed her for a promotion she never saw coming. Her fists clench. Back at Kronex, Mr. K studies the camera feeds again. She's too clean, too perfect in her invisibility. Every movement calculated, every step purposeful. She's hiding, he murmurs. But from what? Later that afternoon, the building's janitorial supervisor is summoned to Mr. K's office, a man with 22 years of service and a look of pure panic on his face. Mr. K doesn't look up from his desk. How long has she worked here? The man stammers. I'm not sure, sir. She's quiet. Shows up early. Never caused trouble. Name? I think it's Maria. Mr. K's voice hardens. You think? That's what she said when she started. No last name. Just Maria. Mr. K leans back in his chair, eyes narrowing. You ever wonder why someone with perfect posture, fluent language skills, and eyes like a soldier would choose to mop floors for a living? The supervisor swallows. I never thought about it. Start thinking. He's dismissive, waving the man out with a flick of his fingers. Alone again, Mr. K opens a locked drawer and pulls out a thumb drive labeled Operation Echo. He inserts it into his computer, and encrypted files begin to appear on screen, document classified under international secrecy laws, long since buried. In one video clip, a woman in tactical gear is seen interrogating a warlord in a language the subtitles don't even bother to identify. She moves like a predator. Her voice is steel, and when the camera catches her face in the flickering light, Mr. K freezes. It's her. Different haircut, younger, but it's unmistakable. He leans forward, his voice low. So it really is you. He closes the file, then opens a new one. It's a confidential personnel file, with his own name on it. And beneath it, her signature. She had once approved his transfer. She hadn't just been a soldier. She had been his superior. And now, she's scrubbing his floors. Something is very, very wrong. The rain started just after sunset, gentle at first, then growing into a rhythmic downpour that blanketed the city in a restless hush. Inside Kronex Global, the office floors were nearly empty, abandoned by the day's rush of ambition and anxiety. But on the executive level, the lights remained on. Mr. K stood near the floor-to-ceiling window, watching raindrops race each other down the glass. His reflection stared back at him. Cold, unreadable, but beneath the surface, something was beginning to fracture. He couldn't reconcile the images. The woman who stood beside him during the Berlin operation, confident, calculated, dominant. With the silent figure he now saw sweeping hallways and disappearing into maintenance closets. Why? Why would someone like her choose this life? His intercom buzzed. Dalton's voice came through. I've got something you need to see. 5th floor. Room 514. Maintenance wing. Mr. K didn't reply. He was already walking. Down below, in the dim, forgotten corners of the building, room 514 wasn't much more than a glorified storage closet. A maintenance logbook sat abandoned on a rusting metal shelf. Electrical cables dangled from exposed ceiling panels. The air smelled of damp concrete and old secrets. Dalton stood waiting beside a cracked wall panel. We found it by accident. One of the cameras glitched, and when we checked the manual feed, we saw her coming out of here. He pulled the panel back. Behind it, a narrow tunnel, barely wide enough for a person to pass through. At the end, a metal hatch. Emergency access. Pre-renovation infrastructure. No one even remembered it existed. Mr. K stepped inside without hesitation, his footsteps echoing through the hollow passage. The tunnel led into a sub-level utility room that hadn't seen daylight in decades, but it had power. In the corner, hidden behind a stack of old HVAC boxes, was a locked case. When Dalton forced it open, inside they found documents. Not just any documents. Original Kronex internal files, signed under false names. Maps of the building. Schedules of executive meetings. Phone logs. Even private board member dossiers. But what chilled Mr. K to the bone was a photograph, tucked between the pages. A grainy shot of himself, from 3 months ago, sitting in a cafe with an external consultant. A meeting he thought was unrecorded, untraceable. She had been following him. She wasn't just hiding. She was watching. He clenched the photo in his hand until the edges tore. Who was she working for? Dalton asked, breaking the silence. Mr. K's voice was low. No one hides this well unless they're protecting something. Or planning something. Elsewhere in the city, under the cover of the storm, the woman was in motion. Wearing a different coat, different shoes, her hair cut shorter, again. She moved through the subway like smoke, unnoticed, untouchable. She had moved apartments the night before, left no trace. The studio was gone. Everything in it gone. Phones destroyed. Cameras looped. She had only one thing left. A small, battered notebook hidden beneath her coat. Inside it, handwritten pages detailed a story that no digital record could trace. Her story, one she never intended to tell. But now, the pieces were aligning too quickly. Her cover was cracked. The eyes of the machine were turning toward her again, and the man she had once trusted was asking all the wrong questions. She entered an old library, the kind no one visited anymore, and took a seat in the farthest corner under a broken light. From her bag, she pulled out an envelope addressed to a law firm in Geneva. Inside, a single page. Signed, stamped, authorized. A trigger. It gave full ownership of a dormant offshore trust. One that owned 8% of Kronex Global. A trust registered under her birth name, which, until now, no one knew. She slid the envelope into a courier drop box, watching it disappear behind the metal flap. As she walked back out into the storm, she knew what would happen next. The war she ran from was about to return to her doorstep. 2 days later, the ripple began. It started as a rumor, a whisper among the board members that someone had acquired a significant share of Kronex Global stock. Untraceable, silent, but real. The numbers didn't lie. Mr. K read the report twice. The holding company's name was unfamiliar. Swiss-based. No digital trail, no visible owners, no known transactions in over a decade. Until now. The name of the trust was Orion Vale International. A name he hadn't heard in 11 years. A name that had once been scribbled at the bottom of a redacted file he was never meant to see. The same name connected to a series of covert funding streams during their Berlin assignment. His stomach twisted. He rose from his desk and called Dalton. I need a list of every remaining contact from Operation Echo. Everyone, even those declared dead. Dalton didn't ask why. He simply nodded and left. Mr. K then turned to his wall of awards, recognitions, press features, all the carefully curated symbols of dominance. For the first time in years, they felt like paper masks hiding something rotten. Meanwhile, inside the Kronex cafeteria, the energy was off. Employees murmured to one another between coffee breaks and glances at their phones. The cleaning woman, the one who had spoken fluent Japanese, hadn't been seen in days. And yet, somehow, her absence made the office feel watched. A junior associate passed by a janitor's cart that hadn't moved all day. On it, wedged discreetly beneath a canister of disinfectant wipes, was a folded piece of paper. She glanced around, curious, and picked it up. There were 3 words on it. He lied first. She blinked, but before she could show anyone, the note was already gone, slipped from her hands by an unseen figure who vanished into the elevator like a shadow. That evening, Mr. K sat alone in his private lounge, a luxurious room hidden behind a biometric lock, accessible only by him. He poured himself a drink he no longer tasted and stared at the fire. He remembered the last night in Berlin, how she had uncovered the betrayal too late, how she had disappeared during the extraction, how they had told him she died in the explosion, but he had never believed it. Not really. There were too many things left unsaid between them, too many buried things. He pulled out the old personnel file again and stared at the name he hadn't dared speak aloud in over a decade. Ariel M. Calder, specialist in counterintelligence, fluent in 9 languages, former commander of Joint Covert Unit Echo 6. Presumed dead. Presumed, but never confirmed. He whispered her name to the empty room. Ari. Just as he did, a noise interrupted the silence, a soft electronic chime from his secure computer. One new file. Untraceable sender. No metadata. No return address. He clicked it open. It was a video. Grainy. Black and white. Security footage. It showed him, Mr. K, inside a hotel suite, speaking to a man across the table, a foreign government representative involved in the Berlin deal. The audio kicked in. His voice, unmistakable, negotiating the terms of Ariel's removal. She knows too much. She's becoming a liability. Take care of it. I'll clean it up from here. He froze. This footage wasn't just damaging. It was fatal. If it leaked, he'd be ruined. Not just in business, but in every circle that mattered. And someone had it. Someone who had waited over a decade to play it. He sat back, blood draining from his face. There was only one person who could have recorded that angle. Only one person who had access to the full suite surveillance at the time. And she was supposed to be dead. But now, she owned 8% of his company. And she wasn't finished yet. The next morning, for the first time in his career, Mr. K didn't arrive early. When he finally walked through the lobby, his face was paler, tighter. The usual nods and greetings from staff went unanswered. Even the security guards noticed something was off. He didn't stop to glance at the woman arranging the front desk flowers. He didn't lecture anyone in the elevator for using their phones. He simply rode in silence, eyes locked on the glowing number panel. Floor after floor passed by, and then he did something unexpected. He pressed 8. The elevator doors opened with a quiet hiss to reveal a hallway most employees didn't even know existed. The 8th floor had been under renovation for nearly 2 years, but no construction ever happened. The lights were dim. The carpet was outdated. There were no cameras. Mr. K walked straight ahead, past closed office doors coated in dust, until he reached the last one, an unmarked door with a brass handle, weathered by time. He paused, hand resting on the knob. He had been here once before, a lifetime ago. The place where the initial blueprint for Cronex's international expansion was drafted. The place where she, Ariel, had pitched the plan to a young, hungry executive who believed the world was his for the taking. Back then, he admired her, envied her, feared her, in a quiet way. And when the chance came to remove her, he took it. He opened the door. Inside, nothing had changed. A long table, shelves filled with untouched documents, a dusty chalkboard with fading handwriting in 2 languages. He ran his fingers over it, wiping the years away. Then he noticed something on the table, a single envelope. No name, no seal. He opened it. Inside was a printed photo of himself. Not recent. From 11 years ago. The exact day they had celebrated the first billion-dollar contract. He was smiling, champagne in hand. And beside him was her. Her hand on his shoulder. Her eyes watching him, not the camera. On the back of the photo, in plain ink, was a sentence. The empire you built on betrayal is crumbling. Watch carefully. He crushed the photo in his hand. Meanwhile, outside the Cronex building, a black car waited at the curb. The driver stood beside it, holding an umbrella. Ariel emerged from the revolving doors dressed not as a janitor, nor a spy, nor a ghost. She wore a tailored coat, elegant heels, and a bag that didn't match the world of mops and rubber gloves. The receptionist at the front desk blinked, confused. She had seen this woman every day for months, cleaning, always cleaning, but now she barely recognized her. Ariel didn't acknowledge anyone. She simply stepped into the car and shut the door behind her. As the vehicle pulled into traffic, she pulled out a tablet and tapped the screen. A live feed loaded. Mr. K, standing in the old office. Staring at the photo, she left for him. He had no idea the room was still wired, that she had installed new equipment through forgotten ducts in the walls. She watched him from across the city. The predator had become the prey. Later that night, in a luxury suite overlooking the city, Ariel poured herself a glass of red wine and opened an old file folder. Inside were documents she had waited years to release. Classified transactions, bribes, stolen contracts, secret transfers, all of them pointing to one name, Mr. K. She had collected everything, silently, methodically, while scrubbing floors, listening, watching. She had waited long enough. It was time to begin phase 2. And this time, there would be no warning. The morning started as any other at Cronex Global, until the headlines hit. At exactly 9 a.m., every major business news outlet published the same breaking story. Whistleblower leak reveals financial corruption at Cronex Global. Internal documents suggest multi-million-dollar fraud. The article was brutal, precise, backed with evidence. Names, dates, signatures, wire transfers, false subsidiaries. And right at the center of it all, Mr. K. Within minutes, panic rippled through the upper floors. Phones rang nonstop. Emails poured in. Legal teams scrambled. Investors called emergency meetings. The stock price dropped 11% in a single hour. Mr. K sat in his office, frozen. The documents were real, not just copies, originals. The kind he thought he had destroyed years ago. Ones that could only have come from someone on the inside. He stood abruptly, pacing. Dalton barged in seconds later. Who released this? We don't know, Dalton said, sweating. Anonymous leak. The files came from a private server in Norway. Scrambled through 6 countries. Every trace is dead. Where's she? Mr. K barked. Dalton hesitated. She hasn't been seen since Tuesday. Her badge hasn't been scanned. Security's combing through footage, but what? She's erased herself again. Mr. K turned to the glass, looking down at the city. His city. For years, he had played the game better than anyone. Outmaneuvered rivals, buried scandals, bought silence. But now the battlefield had shifted. He wasn't dealing with competitors anymore. He was dealing with a ghost who knew him better than he knew himself. Back at the surveillance lab, a technician called Dalton. Sir, we've got something. From last week. Dalton squinted at the monitor. Ariel, in janitor's uniform, entering a restricted server room on the IT floor. The room was supposed to be locked, but she bypassed the keypad with a tool hidden in a mop handle. She connected a device. Waited. removed it, and left. 74 seconds. She never looked at the camera once. Dalton's stomach twisted. He turned to Mr. K later that afternoon. She planted it. Everything. She planned this for months. Maybe longer. Mr. K's voice was low, barely audible. No. She planned this the moment I left her behind. He closed his eyes. He remembered that final Berlin meeting, the hotel suite, the decision to cut her out. Not because she was a threat, but because she was better, smarter, more respected. She had seen through the company's hollow ethics. She wanted out, and he couldn't let her walk away with the truth. So he made sure she never walked away at all. Or so he thought. Now, she was walking through his world like it was hers. And maybe it was. At that moment, a package arrived at the Kronex reception. No return address. No courier name. Inside, a silver flash drive. No label. Just a note. Play me. Privately. Mr. K locked himself in his office. Inserted the drive. A video played. Ariel, sitting in a dimly lit room, speaking directly into the camera. Calm. Unshaken. A queen reclaiming her throne. You always thought you could rewrite history, she says. But I was there. And now so is the truth. She stares at the lens. No one saw me coming. Because you taught them not to look. But they're watching now. Then the screen goes black. Mr. K leans back in his chair, the silence crushing him. He thought betrayal was a weapon. But now it was a mirror. And he was staring into it. By noon, Kronex Global was bleeding. The board of directors called an emergency session behind locked doors. Expressions rigid. Voices hushed and angry. Outside the glass-walled room, employees gathered in nervous clusters, watching the chaos unfold in real time on their phones. No one knew who leaked the files. No one knew who the anonymous insider was. But theories spread like wildfire, and one name started to resurface, quietly, like a ghost slipping between conversations. Ariel called her. Some of the older executives whispered it like a curse. She had once been the rising star of the company's intelligence division, back before Kronex rebranded itself as a tech-forward empire. Few remembered the details. No one dared to ask why her name was erased from the records. Until now. Meanwhile, in a private residence far from the city, a penthouse with a panoramic view of the skyline, Ariel stood in front of a mirror. Gone was the janitor's uniform. Gone were the layers of silence and shadow. She wore a tailored black suit, minimalist jewelry, and eyes sharper than ever. Her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted the pin on her lapel. A phoenix, golden, rising from ashes. Today was the day. She walked across the apartment to a briefcase on the dining table and opened it. Inside were final documents. Proof of her ownership of Orion Vale International, full purchase of the 8% stake, and legal papers confirming a meeting with the board at 3 p.m. sharp. She had requested herself, not as a janitor, not as a memory, as a shareholder, as Ariel called her. At exactly 2:53 p.m., she entered the Kronex lobby. People turned. They recognized her, and yet they didn't. There was something regal in the way she moved, like she belonged in the building in a way no one else ever had. The front desk receptionist, the same one who had seen her wiping fingerprints off brass fixtures for months, stood up abruptly. Miss Calder. Ariel offered a soft nod. I have an appointment. She was escorted to the executive floor by a silent, stunned assistant who barely breathed. When the elevator doors opened, every head in the office turned. Whispers froze. She walked past them all, head high. The doors to the boardroom were already open. Inside, every chair was filled, except one. She took it. Across the table, Mr. K sat rigid, his eyes bloodshot, hands clenched beneath the mahogany surface. He didn't speak. She did. Before we begin, Ariel said calmly, let's correct the record. She reached in her bag and placed a small object on the table, a voice recorder. She pressed play. The room filled with his voice. 11 years ago. Berlin. The betrayal. Some board members flinched. Some leaned forward. Some looked away. When the audio ended, she left the recorder running, just for the tension. Then she placed her hand flat on the table. My name is Ariel M. Calder, she said, and I've come to claim what was stolen from me. Mr. K finally found his voice, a raspy echo of his former self. You have no legal grounds. She smiled. But I do. And I have time. You no longer do. Silence. Then the head of the legal team cleared her throat. Miss Calder owns 8% of the company. That gives her full right to this seat and to request a vote of confidence. Ariel turned to the board. I'm not here to destroy Kronex. I'm here to expose it, clean it, rebuild it. Her gaze slid back to Mr. K. And if necessary, remove it. Outside the door, employees gathered again. They didn't know the details, but they knew something was changing. Something bigger than policy, bigger than money. A shift in power. And at the center of it, the woman who had once cleaned their floors, now ready to rewrite their future. The boardroom, once a fortress of untouchable power, now felt like a courtroom. The tension was suffocating, not loud, but heavy. Words were chosen carefully. Eyes darted. Sweat beaded on the brows of men who had never been questioned. Ariel sat still. Her presence commanded more authority than any title on the wall behind her. The head of legal, an older woman who had long worked in Mr. K's shadow, read the corporate bylaws aloud. As per Section 7.4, any shareholder owning more than 5% has the right to call a vote of confidence in the CEO's leadership. As Miss Calder owns 8%, the motion is valid. Mr. K's jaw flexed. This is a stunt. You're letting personal history taint procedure. Ariel didn't flinch. You erased me, then built your empire over my name. This is procedure. One of the younger board members, until now silent, finally spoke. I have a question, he said carefully. Why come back now? She turned toward him. Because I waited long enough for someone else to do the right thing. And no one did. The room fell quiet again. Another director, one who had been part of the original Berlin operation, shifted uncomfortably. I thought you were dead, he murmured. I was, she replied, evenly. Until today. They proceeded with the vote. One by one, the directors were called. Some abstained. Some hesitated. But most voted in favor of the motion. When the final vote tipped the balance, 7-5 against Mr. K, the decision was sealed. The CEO had officially lost the board's confidence. But the final clause remained. The removal of the CEO requires a majority shareholder vote, the legal head clarified. Currently, Mr. K owns 34%. Everyone turned to Ariel. She calmly placed another document on the table. I recently acquired an additional 12%, she said. From silent investors who no longer trust where this company is heading. Mouths dropped. Eyes widened. The room froze. That gave her a total of 20%. Not enough to control the company outright, but enough to destroy any illusion of Mr. K's dominance. Ariel leaned forward. I'm not here for the title, she said. I'm here to make sure people like you never get to bury anyone like me again. Across the table, Mr. K's mask cracked. All these years, you really think you're better than me? She smiled faintly. No, I know I am. He stood, the chair scraping back violently. This company is me. I built it. You build a weapon, she replied. I'm going to turn it into a cure. Security was called. For the first time in Kronex history, a sitting CEO was escorted out of the building by his own guards. As Mr. K walked through the halls he once ruled, employees didn't speak. They didn't lower their eyes. They watched, and somewhere in the crowd, someone clapped. Just once. But it was enough. Upstairs, Ariel remained seated in the boardroom, breathing slowly. She had won the battle, but not the war, because taking down a man like Mr. K wasn't just about board votes. It was about unraveling the entire system that had protected him. And she had one more move to make. 3 days had passed since the fall. The city was still talking. News anchors dissected every frame of Ariel's boardroom appearance. Analysts speculated on the future of Kronex Global, and employees whispered her name like a legend, half awe, half fear. But while the world watched the flames of corporate downfall flicker, Ariel had already turned her attention to the ashes. She sat in the executive suite, Mr. K's former office, though she refused to redecorate. The wall still bore his taste. Minimalist, sterile, narcissistic. A shrine to power. She left it untouched. It served as a reminder. Her assistant entered quietly. There's something you need to see. IT flagged a folder on the private servers. Encrypted, hidden behind 6 firewalls. It was labeled Codex. Ariel raised an eyebrow. And we cracked it. The flash drive was handed over in silence. She inserted it into her laptop, expecting backup data, maybe old financial records. But it wasn't just that. It was a black box. A comprehensive log of everything Mr. K had done behind closed doors. Covert surveillance on employees, illegal market manipulations, secret buyouts, personal bribes, foreign espionage deals masked as partnerships, even manipulation of pension funds to leverage corporate takeovers. This wasn't just corruption. It was treason in a business suit. Her throat tightened as she scanned the logs. There were names, victims, people who had mysteriously vanished from the company, whistleblowers who were transferred and never heard from again, internal memos approving reputational sabotage, and, at the center of every operation, a single digital signature. His. Ariel closed the laptop and sat very still. She had always known he was dangerous, that he had traded honor for ambition, but she didn't know just how far he had gone to protect his illusion. She thought about the woman from HR who disappeared after asking too many questions, the junior analyst who had suddenly resigned without warning, the investigative journalist who died in a car crash 2 weeks after publishing an op-ed criticizing Cronex's ethics. Now it all made sense. And now she had the Codex file, the nuclear button. She could destroy him, not just legally, publicly. That evening, she met with her legal counsel and 2 investigative reporters in a quiet cafe, far from the skyscraper. She handed over a duplicate of the flash drive, her expression unreadable. "I want every line verified," she said. "No sensationalism, just truth." One of the journalists, a woman with sharp eyes and scars of her own, nodded. "It'll take time." "Then take time," Ariel said. "But don't hold back." Later, as she walked alone through the city streets, rain gently falling, she found herself in front of a modest building, one of Cronex's oldest satellite offices. It had long been closed, turned into a warehouse, but she remembered it well. It was where she had first been recruited, where he had first handed her a folder, smiled with admiration, and promised they would change the world together. She lit a cigarette, a habit she hadn't touched in years, and stared at the cracked windows of the past. "Funny," she murmured, "how the worst lies are told with sincerity." Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. One message. "You're playing with fire." "He's not done." She stared at the screen, then typed a reply. "Neither am I." It was just past midnight when the first real retaliation came. Cronex's internal servers went dark for 17 minutes. Every computer screen in the building went black. Every phone call dropped. The security system rebooted. Firewalls tripped. Surveillance feeds glitched. At first, it seemed like a system error. But Ariel knew better. She was in the executive suite when it happened. The moment the lights flickered, she didn't panic. She reached under her desk and pulled out the Faraday case that contained her private laptop, one not connected to any Cronex network. She powered it on and waited. 7 minutes in, the breach was clear. Someone had triggered a silent program buried deep in the legacy code. A worm designed to activate only if Mr. K lost control of the system. A digital dead man's switch. Its purpose? To erase files, bury trails, protect him. But the codex file had already been duplicated and air-gapped. He had failed. Still, this was a message. She leaned back in her chair as the lights flickered once more and came back online. Outside the glass windows, the storm raged, lightning illuminating the skyline like camera flashes. The building creaked faintly, like something ancient trying to speak. She stood, walked to the window, and waited. Then, as if summoned, her phone rang, an untraceable number. She let it ring 4 times before answering. No greeting, just silence. And then his voice. Calm, tired, but not defeated. "You never could leave things buried, could you?" Ariel didn't move. "You should have stayed dead," he added. She exhaled slowly. "You should have made sure I was." Another pause. "I built everything," he said. "You're just tearing it down." "No," she said. "I'm exposing it. There's a difference." His voice sharpened. "You think you're righteous? You used to believe in a mission. I believed in truth. You turned it into profit." A soft chuckle came through the line. "You know, I still have leverage. There are things in that codex you don't want the world to see." "I've seen them all," she said. "And I'm not the one who should be afraid." His voice dropped to a whisper. "You're not safe." Click. The line went dead. She stared at the phone, then deleted the call log. Outside, the rain turned violent, slashing against the glass in waves. Back in her private apartment, she checked every room. Every lock. Every camera. Then she opened a small, hidden safe behind a bookshelf and pulled out a pistol. Old but clean. Maintained. The kind only someone with training would keep. She loaded it with steady hands. She knew he was desperate now. Cornered animals don't bark. They bite. What she didn't expect, however, was the letter waiting for her the next morning. Slipped under her office door. No return address. No markings. Just her name, handwritten in ink that looked oddly familiar. Inside, a single sheet of paper. Typed. Short. You still think this ends with me? You have no idea who was protecting me all along. You've started a war you can't see. Her fingers tightened around the page. Because she recognized the signature at the bottom. It wasn't Mr. K. It was someone else. Someone from before Berlin. Someone higher. Someone she once called Commander. The office was silent. Too silent. Ariel stood at the window of the executive floor, overlooking the city like a general watching over her battlefield. But for the first time in weeks, her thoughts were not on Mr. K. They were on the letter. You have no idea who was protecting me all along. She had believed Mr. K was the last piece. The final confrontation. The man who ended her past and haunted her future. But this was something else. She spread the letter on the desk and scanned it again, her eyes tracing the signature. C. R. Valen. A name she hadn't heard in over 15 years. Not since the Foundry Project, a Black Ops experiment in preemptive corporate warfare. She was 23. He was the ghost at the top of the command chain. No one ever saw him, but everyone feared him. He had recruited Mr. K, and he had recruited her, until he turned them against each other. She hadn't realized it until now. It was never about betrayal between her and Mr. K. It was about control. His control, and Valen had played them both. She knew what she had to do. She returned to the codex. But this time, she searched for buried fragments, subroutines in the system only someone like her would know how to trace. Layer by layer, she peeled away the false files, the traps, the noise. And there it was. A hidden folder, protected by biometric encryption. She pressed her thumb against the reader. Access granted. Founders_log, final_record. She opened the first file. It was a confession. Not from Mr. K. From Valen. A recording, dated 13 years ago. In it, he spoke plainly, his voice low, reflective. I built Chronex to be a weapon. Not a company. Not a brand. A weapon to destabilize, manipulate, and profit from weakness. We recruited the best. Operatives, linguists, analysts. We gave them purpose. But only those who could be controlled were allowed to lead. He paused. Ariel was never supposed to survive Berlin. She knew too much. She asked the wrong questions. She was inconvenient. A long silence. And yet, if you're hearing this, she's alive. Which means the system has failed. The video ended. And with it, so did the illusion. Ariel sat back, her heart pounding with a new kind of clarity. She had spent years believing she was chasing revenge. But now she realized she was the last test. The final loose end in a program designed to erase resistance. And she had passed. Outside the door, footsteps approached. Dalton entered quietly. They've arrested Mr. K. She blinked. Already, the evidence was undeniable. The press has it. The codex is public. Investors are pulling out. But something strange came up. He hesitated. What? Interpol opened a parallel investigation. But not on Mr. K. On Valen. Ariel stood slowly. So they believe me now? Dalton nodded. They don't just believe you. They want your help. That night, she walked alone through the halls of Chronex. Empty now. Just her footsteps. Just the sound of rain. She reached the janitor's closet. The same one where she had started this entire operation. She opened the door. Inside, silence, old uniforms, a forgotten cart. She ran her hand along the shelf, then closed the door. When she turned around, her reflection stared back from the dark glass of the hallway. No longer invisible, no longer disposable, and finally, no longer hunted. She walked out the front doors of Chronex for the last time. Not as a ghost, but as a reckoning. As the credits would roll in a film, we'd see a quiet epilogue. Mr. K in prison, watching her on the news. Valen's name leaked to the world, now synonymous with the corruption they tried to bury. And Ariel, seated in front of the UN Council, testifying about the weaponized corporatism that nearly cost her everything. She never wanted the spotlight. She wanted justice. And now, the world was finally listening. And just like that, the janitor no one ever noticed became the woman no one could ignore. She didn't return to Cronex. She didn't need to. Her silence had spoken louder than their power ever could. Because some ghosts don't haunt, they come back to reclaim. Now let me ask you something. How many invisible people are walking around your world, quietly watching, waiting? And what would happen if they stopped being silent? Thank you for watching this story. If it left you thinking, if it stirred something inside you, then don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. Stories that hit deeper than headlines and twist harder than fiction. Comment below. What would you have done in Ariel's place? Have you ever been underestimated and turned the tables? I'll be reading your answers. Until next time, stay sharp, stay curious, and remember, not every cleaner is just cleaning.